Claire Dawson stood frozen in the doorway of Ethan's home office, watching her husband of 7 years whisper sweet promises into his phone, while caressing a framed photo of a woman who wasn't her, a woman whose emerald eyes and platinum hair she recognized from countless Instagram posts as Savannah Clark, the lifestyle influencer who had been consulting on their penthouse renovation. The manila envelope containing divorce papers slipped from Claire's trembling fingers, scattering across the Persian rug like fallen autumn leaves. 6 months pregnant with their long-awaited first child, she had come to share the news that their baby was a girl, but instead discovered that her marriage was already dead and buried in lies. Ethan spun around, his face cycling through surprise, guilt, and finally settling on cold indifference. "Claire, I didn't hear you come in." His voice carried none of the warmth that had once made her heart skip. The phone call ended with a hurried "I'll call you back, sweetheart," an endearment he hadn't used for her in months. "Who is she, Ethan?" Claire's voice was steadier than she felt, her hand instinctively protecting the curve of her belly. "And don't you dare lie to me. Not now." Ethan loosened his tie, a gesture she had once found endearing, but now recognized as his tell when he was about to deliver devastating news. "Her name is Savannah. We've been seeing each other for 8 months." He moved to pour himself a scotch, the amber liquid catching the late afternoon light streaming through their floor-to-ceiling windows. "I didn't plan for this to happen, Claire, but I can't deny what I feel for her anymore." The room seemed to tilt on its axis. 8 months, their entire attempt at IVF, her morning sickness, the joy of seeing their daughter's tiny form on the ultrasound screen. All of it had been overshadowed by his betrayal. "You were with her while we were trying to have a baby," she whispered, the words cutting through the air like shards of glass. "I've filed for divorce," Ethan continued, his businessman's tone making the announcement sound like a quarterly earnings report. "My attorney will be in touch. I want to make this as easy as possible for everyone involved, especially given your condition." Claire's lawyer mind kicked into overdrive even as her heart shattered. Your condition, as if her pregnancy was an inconvenience rather than the miracle they had prayed for. Through 3 years of fertility treatments, easy for everyone? You mean easy for you and your mistress? Don't be dramatic, Claire. Savannah isn't some home wrecker. She's a successful businesswoman with her own brand, her own life. What we have is real. Ethan's eyes held a fervor that Claire recognized. It was the same passionate intensity he had once reserved for her, back when they were young lawyers, working late nights at competing firms, stealing kisses in empty conference rooms. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had given up her own promising legal career to support his dreams of building a real estate empire, hosting dinner parties for his investors, managing their social calendar, playing the perfect wife while he climbed higher and higher. Now, at 34, she was about to become a single mother with a 7-year gap in her resume and a prenup that she had foolishly signed in the haze of new love. Or so he thought. "I'll pack some things and stay at my sister's tonight," Claire said, quietly, surprising him with her calm acceptance. "We'll need to discuss custody arrangements and financial support for the baby." Ethan nodded, relief flickering across his handsome features. "Of course. I'll make sure you and the baby are taken care of. I'm not a monster, Claire." As she climbed the stairs to their bedroom, her former bedroom, Claire's mind was already working. Ethan had always underestimated her, especially after she had stepped back from practicing law. He saw her as the supportive wife, the woman who had sacrificed her ambition for his, the pregnant woman who would quietly accept whatever settlement he offered. But Ethan had forgotten something crucial. Claire Dawson Nee Morrison had graduated top of her class from Columbia Law, had been recruited by 3 of the most prestigious firms in Manhattan, and had only put her career on hold, never truly abandoned it. She had kept her law license active, maintained relationships with former colleagues, and had been quietly consulting on cases from home. More importantly, Ethan had forgotten about the documents they had signed during their IVF journey, the legal protections they had put in place when they were still a united front, still believing in their future together. Documents that he had signed without reading carefully, trusting his wife's legal expertise completely. As Claire carefully folded her maternity clothes into a suitcase, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: power. For too long, She had felt helpless, watching her marriage crumble while trying to hold on to hope for their family. But knowledge was power, and she had knowledge that would change everything. Her phone buzzed with a text from her former law partner, Jennifer. "Chen, saw the news about Ethan and that influencer girl on page 6. Are you okay? Call me if you need anything, and I mean anything." Claire smiled for the first time in weeks. She had allies, resources, and most importantly, she had been preparing for this moment longer than Ethan could possibly imagine. The game was just beginning, and he had no idea that his docile, pregnant wife was about to become his most formidable opponent. 3 weeks after moving out of the penthouse, Claire sat in the elegant conference room of Chen Martinez and Associates, her former law firm. Surrounded by documents that would have made Ethan's blood run cold, Jennifer Chen, now a senior partner, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, spread the papers across the mahogany table like a poker player revealing a royal flush. "I have to say, Claire, when you called asking me to review your marital documents, I never expected to find this." Jennifer tapped a particular clause buried deep in what appeared to be standard IVF consent forms. "This silent partnership agreement is bulletproof. Ethan essentially signed over 30% of Dawson Development to you when you underwent the embryo transfer procedure." Claire's heart raced as she reread the document. She remembered that day clearly. They had been so hopeful, so in love, so determined to create their family together. Ethan had been willing to sign anything that would protect their future child's inheritance. He thought it was just ensuring the baby would have claim to his assets. "If something happened to him, it does that," Jennifer said with a satisfied smile. "But it also makes you a legal partner in his company effective immediately upon pregnancy. And since you're carrying his child," she gestured to Claire's rounded belly, now prominently showing at 7 months. "There's more," added Marcus Rivera, the firm's litigation specialist, sliding another folder across the table. "We've been investigating Ms. Savannah Clark. Turns out your husband's successful businesswoman has quite an interesting background." Claire opened the folder to find a comprehensive dossier that would have impressed the FBI. Bank records, social media analytics, employment history, and most damning of all evidence that Savannah had specifically targeted married wealthy men. She's done this twice before," Marcus continued. "Both times, she meticulously inserted herself into the lives of wealthy married men, used inside information to manipulate situations, and walked away with substantial settlements. With Theodore Hampton in Los Angeles, she gained access to his private investment strategies and made profitable trades. With Richard Slate in Miami, she convinced him to make her the beneficiary of a significant life insurance policy. Just months before his mysterious boating accident." Claire's blood chilled. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything that isn't supported by documentation," Marcus said carefully. "But I am saying that Ms. Clark has a pattern of intimate involvement with wealthy men that results in significant financial gain for her and devastating losses for them." Jennifer leaned forward. "Claire, there's something else. We pulled Ethan's financial records, which we can access now. That you're a legal partner in his business. He's been hemorrhaging money. The penthouse renovation that cost $3 million. Savannah convinced him to use materials and contractors that inflated the budget by 60%. His investment in her lifestyle brand, it's a shell company that exists only to funnel his money into her personal accounts." The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. Savannah hadn't just stolen Claire's husband, she had been systematically destroying his empire while positioning herself to inherit the pieces. "How much has he lost?" "Conservative estimate, $12 million in the past 8 months. Marcus replied. "At this rate, Dawson Development will be bankrupt within 6 months." Regardless of the divorce proceedings, Claire felt a complex mix of emotions: betrayal, vindication, and surprisingly, a flicker of sympathy for the man who had shattered her world. Ethan was brilliant at real estate development, but naive about personal relationships. He had always trusted too easily, believed too readily in people's good intentions. It was one of the qualities that had made her fall in love with him, and now it was destroying him. "What are our options?" she asked, her legal mind taking control. Jennifer smiled, and Claire remembered why she had been such a formidable opponent in court. We have several nuclear options. First, we can invoke the infidelity clause in your prenup, which nullifies any financial protections he thought he had. Second, we can exercise your partnership rights and demand a full audit of company finances, which will expose Savannah's systematic fraud. Third, and this is the beautiful part, we can file for alienation of affection in North Carolina. Alienation of affection. Claire hadn't heard that term since law school. It's an old tort that still exists in a few states, Marcus explained. Essentially, we can sue Savannah for deliberately destroying your marriage. Given her pattern of behavior and the financial evidence, we could be looking at a multi-million-dollar judgment against her personally. Claire stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline where Ethan's developments dotted the horizon, like monuments to his ambition. In a few hours, she would meet with her obstetrician for a routine checkup. Her daughter was healthy and strong, kicking vigorously whenever Claire felt stressed, which had been often lately. Her phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. Against her better judgment, she looked. Savannah had posted a photo of herself trying on wedding dresses, with the caption, "When you know, you know." Hashtag new beginnings, hashtag love wins, hashtag blessed beyond measure. The comments were a mix of congratulations and barely veiled criticism. Several people had posted side-by-side photos of Claire and Savannah, questioning the timeline of the relationship. But Savannah basked in the attention, responding to every comment with heart emojis and gratitude. She has no idea what's coming, Claire murmured. Actually, Jennifer said, joining her at the window. I think it's time she found out. We've received word that Ethan is planning to announce their engagement publicly at some charity gala next month. He's invited 500 of New York's most influential people, including half his investors and all the major real estate journalists. Claire turned back to her legal team, feeling the baby shift inside her as if sensing the change in her mother's energy. What do you recommend? Marcus grinned like a shark scenting blood. We recommend that you attend that engagement party, Claire. As his business partner, you have every right to be there. And we recommend that you bring some documents with you. For the first time since finding Ethan with Savannah's photo, Claire laughed, a rich, genuine sound that filled the conference room. Gentlemen, I think it's time to RSVP to a party. The Carlisle Hotel's rooftop venue buzzed with New York's elite as they sipped champagne and whispered about Ethan Dawson's scandalous divorce and rapid engagement. Claire observed the crowd from across the street, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as her soon-to-be ex-husband played the role of devoted fiancé to perfection. Savannah glowed in a custom Vera Wang dress that cost more than most people's annual salary, her engagement ring catching the light like a beacon of her victory. Claire checked her reflection in the black town car's window. At 8 months pregnant, she had chosen her outfit carefully, a midnight blue maternity dress by Carolina Herrera that accentuated her curves while maintaining an aura of quiet dignity and power. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and she wore the pearl necklace Ethan had given her for their 5th anniversary, back when he still remembered their important dates. Are you ready for this? Jennifer Chen asked from beside her, checking her own phone for last-minute updates from their legal team. I've been ready for weeks, Claire replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. In her purse, she carried 3 sets of documents that would change the trajectory of everyone's lives. In that glittering room above, the past month had been a whirlwind of legal maneuvering and investigation. Marcus Rivers' team had uncovered even more damaging evidence about Savannah's past, including her real name Sarah Jane Kowalski from Buffalo, New York, and a sealed juvenile record that suggested her pattern of manipulation began early. More crucially, they had documented every financial transaction between Savannah and Ethan, creating an airtight case of fraud and emotional manipulation. Claire's phone vibrated with a text from her sister, Amy, watching the live stream of the party on social media. That woman is actually wearing your grandmother's bracelet, the one from your jewelry box. Claire's jaw tightened. The antique diamond bracelet had been in her family for 3 generations, passed down from mother to daughter. Seeing it on Savannah's wrist felt like a violation that went beyond adultery into something deeper and more personal. Time to go, Jennifer said, gathering her own leather portfolio. Remember, we're not here to cause a scene. We're here to serve legal documents and make a statement. Let the paperwork do the talking. They entered the Carlisle through the main lobby, Claire's heels clicking against the marble floor with quiet authority. The elevator ride to the rooftop felt both eternal and instantaneous. As the doors opened, the sounds of celebration washed over them: laughter, clinking glasses, and a string quartet playing romantic standards. Ethan spotted her first. He had been in the middle of giving a toast, champagne flute raised to celebrate his new beginning with the love of my life, when his eyes locked with Claire's across the room. The color drained from his face, and his speech stumbled to a halt. Savannah followed his gaze, her expression shifting from confusion to fury in seconds. She had clearly hoped that Claire would hide away in shame, that her victory would be complete and uncontested. Instead, here was the woman she had replaced, looking radiant and powerful, commanding the attention of every person in the room simply by existing. Claire made her way through the crowd with graceful determination, accepting concerned greetings from people who had known her for years. Many of these guests had attended her own wedding to Ethan, had celebrated milestones with them as a couple. Their presence tonight felt like a betrayal, but she understood the social politics at play in their world. You attended the parties of powerful men, regardless of personal feelings about their choices. Claire, Ethan said when she reached the center of the room, where he and Savannah stood beneath twinkling lights. His voice carried a mix of shock and something that might have been shame. I didn't expect you to come. As your business partner, I felt it was important to attend, Claire replied smoothly, enjoying the way his eyes widened at the word partner. She turned to Savannah with a polite smile. And you must be Sarah, or do you prefer Savannah these days? Savannah's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flash of panic that crossed her features at the mention of her real name. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice lacked its usual confident purr. Of course you do, Claire continued conversationally. Sarah Jane Kowalski, formerly of Buffalo, New York, previously engaged to Theodore Hampton of Los Angeles and Richard Slate of Miami. Both relationships ended quite profitably for you, didn't they? The room had grown quiet around them, guests sensing drama and moving closer to catch every word. Phones were discreetly raised to record what was clearly about to become the social event of the season. Ethan stepped forward, his protective instincts kicking in despite his confusion. Claire, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but no game, Ethan, Claire interrupted, opening her purse and withdrawing the first set of documents. Just some paperwork that needs your attention. These are copies of documents you signed 8 months ago, establishing me as a legal partner in Dawson Development. Since I'm carrying your child, the partnership became active the moment I conceived. Ethan's hands shook as he read the papers, his face cycling through disbelief, recognition, and growing horror. This can't be legally binding. Oh, but it is, Jennifer Chen said, appearing at Claire's shoulder like an avenging angel in Armani. Congratulations, Ethan. Your wife owns 30% of your company. Savannah grabbed the documents from Ethan's hands, her acrylic nails leaving scratches on the paper as she scanned them frantically. This is ridiculous. You can't just actually. I can, Claire said, producing the second set of papers. These are financial records showing systematic fraud committed against Dawson Development. Inflated contractor bills, fake investment opportunities, money transferred to shell companies, all traced back to accounts controlled by you, Sarah. The crowd pressed closer, whispers spreading like wildfire. Claire could see Ethan's investors exchanging worried glances, phones being pulled out to contact lawyers and accountants. The party atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by the tension of a business deal gone horribly wrong. And finally, Claire said, presenting the third set of documents with the flourish of a master magician, revealing their final trick. These are legal papers filed in North Carolina, where alienation of affection is still a viable tort. I'm suing you, Sarah, for the deliberate destruction of my marriage. The penalty, she smiled sweetly, everything you've stolen, plus punitive damages. We're looking at roughly $15 million. Savannah's champagne flute slipped from her nerveless fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent room like a gunshot. The silence stretched taut as a violin string until Savannah's voice cut through it like a blade. "You psychotic bitch," she hissed, all pretense of elegance abandoned. "You think you can waltz in here, pregnant and pathetic, and destroy what Ethan and I have built together?" The crowd gasped at the vulgarity, phones capturing every moment of Savannah's mask slipping away. Claire remained perfectly still, one hand resting protectively on her belly as her daughter kicked in response to the tension. Ethan stepped between them, his face flushed with alcohol and embarrassment. "Savannah, please, let's handle this privately." He turned to Claire, desperation creeping into his voice. "Claire, surely we can work something out. You don't want to drag our private business through the courts, especially with the baby, our baby," Claire corrected quietly, the words carrying more weight than any shout. "The baby you were willing to abandon for a woman who's been systematically robbing you blind." "That's not true." Savannah's voice rose to a near shriek. "I love Ethan. Everything I've done has been for us, for our future together." Marcus Rivera materialized at Claire's other side, tablet in hand. "Ms. Kowalski, would you like to explain these bank transfers from Dawson Development to Paradise Investments, the company that exists only on paper and shares an address with your apartment building?" Savannah's eyes darted around the room, seeking an escape route that didn't exist. The rooftop venue suddenly felt like a gladiatorial arena, with New York's social elite serving as bloodthirsty spectators. Those were legitimate business expenses. I was helping Ethan expand his portfolio into what? Marcus continued relentlessly. Beach properties in Belize that don't exist, a luxury resort in Costa Rica that was never built, or perhaps the Miami penthouse that you somehow ended up owning personally. Ethan's head snapped towards Savannah, pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. "The Miami property, you said that was an investment opportunity, that we would own it together." "We do own it together," Savannah insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "I mean, technically it's in my name for tax purposes, but just like the jewelry company was in your name for tax purposes," Claire interjected, pulling out her phone to display a series of bank transfers. "The one that purchased $500,000 worth of diamonds and precious metals, all charged to Ethan's accounts." Claire's gaze fixed on her grandmother's bracelet adorning Savannah's wrist. With deliberate calm, she reached out and unclasped it, the diamonds catching the light as she removed it from the other woman's arm. "This belonged to my great-grandmother," Claire said, fastening the heirloom around her own wrist. "She survived the Depression by making smart choices about who to trust. I think she would have seen right through you." Savannah lunged forward, but Ethan caught her arm. For the first time, Claire saw real fear in his eyes, not fear of legal consequences, but fear of the woman he had chosen over his pregnant wife. "How much, Savannah?" Ethan's voice was deadly quiet. "How much did you steal from me?" "I didn't steal anything." But Savannah's protest rang hollow as Marcus continued to scroll through financial records on his tablet. "Everything I did was, with your permission. You wanted to make me happy. You said you'd give me anything. I said I'd give you anything within reason," Ethan corrected, his voice growing stronger as the scope of the betrayal became clear. "I didn't give you permission to empty my accounts or forge my signature on investment documents." The crowd pressed closer, sensing the kill. Claire could see phones recording every moment, social media posts being crafted in real time. By morning, this confrontation would be trending across multiple platforms. "The prenup," Claire said suddenly, causing both Ethan and Savannah to freeze. "The ironclad prenup that was supposed to protect your assets from me, it becomes null and void in cases of adultery, which means I'm entitled to half of everything you had when we married, plus my 30% partnership stake in the company." Ethan did the math instantly, his real estate developer's mind calculating the catastrophic numbers. That's almost everything." "Not almost," Jennifer Chen corrected with professional satisfaction. "With the fraudulent transfers and the alienation of affection lawsuit, we're looking at Ms. Kowalski being personally liable for damages that exceed Mr. Dawson's current liquid assets." Savannah's perfectly contoured face crumpled as the reality hit her. She had played a long game, but she had underestimated her opponent. Claire wasn't the abandoned wife she had expected. She was a chess master who had been planning her moves. For months, you planned this, Savannah whispered, her voice barely audible above the whispered conversations of the crowd. You knew all along what I was doing. Claire tilted her head slightly, considering the accusation. I suspected you were after Ethan's money from the moment you started consulting on our renovation. But I didn't know the extent of your operation until my legal team investigated. You're quite thorough. Sarah, you almost got away with it. Almost. Savannah's laugh was bitter and broken. You think you've won. You think Ethan will come crawling back to you now? He doesn't love you anymore, Claire. He chose me, even if you take everything else away. You can't change that. The words hit their target, and for a moment, Claire felt the old pain flare up, the agony of being replaced, of watching her husband fall in love with someone else. But then her daughter kicked again, a strong reminder of what truly mattered. You're right, Claire said simply. He did choose you, and that choice cost him everything: his marriage, his family, his fortune, and ultimately, his self-respect. I hope it was worth it. She turned to Ethan, who stood frozen between his past and his future, both now in ruins. The divorce papers are already filed. I'll need you to vacate the penthouse by Friday so it can be sold to pay your debts. Your attorney can contact mine about visitation arrangements for our daughter. As Claire walked toward the exit, Jennifer and Marcus flanking her like bodyguards, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Behind her, she could hear Savannah's voice rising in panic, Ethan's terse responses, and the excited chatter of guests who had just witnessed the social event of the decade. The elevator doors closed on the wreckage of what had once been her life, and Claire allowed herself one moment of grief for the love she had lost and the marriage that had died in betrayal. But as the elevator descended, carrying her away from the scene of her victory, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: freedom. 6 weeks later, Claire sat in the nursery of her new apartment, an elegant two-bedroom overlooking Central Park that she had purchased with her own money from the legal settlement. Sophia Rose Dawson slept peacefully in her arms, tiny fingers wrapped around Claire's thumb with a grip that felt like a promise of strength to come. The morning sun streamed through windows that had never known the shadow of betrayal, illuminating a space that was entirely hers. No remnants of her marriage to Ethan existed here, no wedding photos, no shared memories embedded in furniture or artwork. This was a clean slate, a fresh beginning built on the foundation of her own resilience and determination. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Page 6 says Savannah was arrested trying to board a flight to Monaco with 2 suitcases full of jewelry. Apparently, she tried to liquidate assets before the court orders froze her accounts. Claire smiled as she adjusted Sophia's blanket. The legal proceedings had moved with startling speed. Once the evidence of fraud became public, Ethan's empire had crumbled within weeks, his investors fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. The penthouse had sold to pay debts, the company was in receivership, and Ethan himself had retreated to his family's summer house in the Hamptons, reportedly drinking heavily and refusing all interview requests. There had been no shortage of media attention. The story of the pregnant lawyer who had outmaneuvered her cheating husband and his con artist mistress had captured public imagination. Claire had been offered book deals, movie rights, and speaking engagements. She had declined them all, focusing instead on preparing for motherhood and quietly rebuilding her legal career. Amy knocked softly on the nursery door before entering with 2 cups of coffee. "How's our little warrior today?" she whispered, settling into the rocking chair beside Claire's. "Perfect," Claire replied, meaning it completely. Despite the chaos of the past few months, Sophia had been born healthy and strong, as if her mother's determination had somehow fortified her in the womb. "Any word from him?" Amy asked carefully. She had been Claire's rock throughout the ordeal, moving in to help with the baby and serving as a buffer against unwanted attention. Claire shook her head. Ethan had sent flowers to the hospital when Sophia was born, along with a card that simply read, "I'm sorry." He had signed the birth certificate and established a trust fund for his daughter, one of the few assets that had survived the legal earthquake. But he had made no attempt to visit or to rebuild any kind of relationship with Claire. "He's broken," Claire said without malice. "Completely broken. Jennifer says he's been seeing a therapist, trying to understand how he made such catastrophic choices. Part of me feels sorry for him. Only part of you. Amy raised an eyebrow. The part that remembers loving him, Claire admitted. The part that knows he didn't set out to destroy our lives. He was manipulated by an expert, and his ego made him vulnerable. But she looked down at Sophia's peaceful face. But feeling sorry for him doesn't mean I regret what I did. He made his choices, and I made mine. A soft knock at the apartment door interrupted their conversation. Amy frowned. Are you expecting anyone? Claire wasn't, but something in her chest tightened with recognition as Amy returned with a familiar figure. Ethan stood in the living room doorway, looking haggard and older than his 41 years. His expensive suits had been replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, and his once pristine appearance showed the wear of months of stress and regret. Hello, Claire, he said softly. I know I should have called first, but His voice trailed off as his eyes found Sophia sleeping in her mother's arms. God, she's beautiful. Claire studied her ex-husband's face, seeing genuine awe and pain there. She has your eyes, she said simply. Ethan's composure cracked, and tears began to slide down his cheeks. Claire, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything good in my life for someone who was using me. But please, let me be part of her life. Let me try to be the father she deserves. What about Savannah? Claire asked, though she already knew the answer from news reports. There's no Savannah, Ethan said bitterly. There never really was. Everything about her was a lie. An elaborate performance designed to separate me from everything I valued. When the arrest started and the truth came out, she didn't even try to maintain the pretense of loving me. She told the police I was just another Mark, another wealthy fool who deserved what happened to him. Claire felt an unexpected surge of sympathy. She had been betrayed by Ethan's infidelity, but he had been betrayed by something deeper, the complete fabrication of love itself. I don't expect anything from you, Ethan continued. I know our marriage is over, that what I did can never be forgiven or forgotten. But Sophia, she shouldn't have to pay for my mistakes. I want to support her, to be present in whatever way you'll allow. Claire looked down at their daughter, sleeping peacefully despite the weight of adult conversations surrounding her. In a few years, Sophia would ask questions about her father, about why her parents weren't together. What story would Claire tell her? One of pure victimization and villainy, or something more complex and human? You can see her, Claire said finally. Supervised visits at first, and we'll need to establish ground rules. But you're her father, and she deserves to know you. Ethan's relief was palpable. Thank you, he whispered. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but thank you. As he prepared to leave, Ethan paused at the door. For what it's worth, Claire, watching you fight for yourself and for Sophia, it reminded me of why I fell in love with you in the first place. You were always the strongest person I knew. I just forgot that for a while. After he left, Claire sat in the gathering twilight, holding her daughter and contemplating the strange turns of life. She had entered this ordeal as a victim betrayed, abandoned, underestimated. She was emerging from it as something else entirely, a single mother, a successful attorney returning to practice, a woman who had learned that her own strength was more valuable than any man's love. Sophia stirred in her arms, dark eyes opening to gaze up at her mother with the unfocused wonder of the very young. In those eyes, Claire saw infinite possibility of future unburdened by the mistakes of the past, a life that would be shaped by different choices and different values. We're going to be okay, little one, she whispered, and for the first time in months, she believed it completely. Outside, New York City hummed with its endless energy. Millions of people pursuing their own dreams and making their own choices. Some would find love and lose it. Some would build empires and watch them fall. Some would trust unwisely and pay the price. But in this quiet nursery, overlooking the park where children played and lovers walked and life continued in all its messy complexity, Claire held her daughter and felt something she had thought was lost forever, hope, epiloguative. Years later, Claire Morrison Dawson, she had reclaimed her maiden name professionally, was a partner at Chen Martinez and Associates, specializing in family law and women's rights. Her landmark case against alienation of affection had helped strengthen protections for betrayed spouses across multiple states. Sophia was a bright, curious kindergartner who spent weekends with her father, a quieter, humbler man who had rebuilt his life around being present for his daughter, rather than chasing wealth and status. Savannah Clark, whose real name was indeed Sarah Jane Kowalski, was serving a 5-year sentence for fraud and identity theft. Her previous victims had come forward after Claire's case gained national attention, revealing a pattern of deception that stretched back over a decade. As for Claire, she had learned to trust again, carefully, gradually, and on her own terms. But that, perhaps, was a story for another day.